Here's the last tip that I wrote down from Blumberg to ask you about. When people are told what to believe, they often reject it and strongly begin to consider the opposite. So Blumberg's advice is to avoid triggering what he calls the reactance attitude of, you can't tell me what to do. So don't say things like, the evidence compels a verdict. You want to give an inoculation against reactance, such as, telling the jury that the decision is up to you. Is that science? Do you recall that as being backed by scientific evidence, or is it not science and just maybe good advice regardless?
I don't think there's much science behind that precisely. I think you could offer some science that's adjacent to it, such as what we discussed about the status quo of our beliefs. People might be more willing to go along with a conclusion that has some dissonance with their own pre-existing beliefs, if the conclusion isn't stated, in the strongest possible terms. Mm-hmm. So if they're kind of permitted to reach the conclusion rather than, demanded that they do it. I mean, what this comes down to really is the ancient idea that people are stubborn, that nobody likes being told what to do. So, that is a truth about human nature, maybe, that transcends science. One thing I've caught myself doing more recently that fits with this advice is, you're writing headings of briefs, or you're writing always the first or last sentence, and you have a choice. You could say, and this could be in a trial level brief or an appellate brief, but I'll give an appellate example. This court must reverse the decision below. Or you could say, this court should reverse the decision below. And I've been really aiming to go for should reverse lately. And it feels a little risky, like, but they really must. I've got to make them do it. But ultimately, you can't make them do it. So even though saying, the court should reverse, or the decision below rested on legal error, you're not demanding that they do anything. You're just presenting to the Court of Appeal in this example, here's what happened. You make your own decision, but you should reverse. Goes along with this advice of, Court of Appeal doesn't want to be ordered around.
Yeah, whether you're speaking to appellate justices or teenage kids, I found should works better.
Or I have a toddler, actually I have a preschooler as well, and even though I could, make him do whatever I want, it's so much smoother if I say, could you please, take your shoes off? He's going to actually a lot more likely to do it than if I say, take your shoes off this instant.
You have just listened to the California Appellate Podcast, a discussion of timely trial tips and the latest cases and news coming from the California Court of Appeal and the California Supreme Court. For more information about the cases discussed in today's episode, our hosts, and other episodes, visit the California Appellate Law Podcast website at calpodcast.com. That's calpodcast.com. Thanks to Jonathan Caro for our intro music. Thank you for listening, and please join us again.